But how does your humor go down there? How, like, if you're offending people on stage, like, does that fly?
Well, I'm only work out in the burbs. The city's a fucking write-off for me. But then there's nowhere that really pays down here. You've got the Comics Lounge, great room.
Great room. Run by great people too.
And that's a great audience. It's really, it's blue collar. It's just a big mix.
Mm.
So you can do pretty much anything there, but get into these tiny little open mic nights. They don't pay, so I can't be fucked doing them anyway. But and it's not my audience. It's really not my audience. They're offended easily. It's just too much for me.
Oh, it's I've only done rooms that aren't my audience a couple of times. I did it in Perth, and a mate of mine, I'm sure you know, Kyle Legacy. He stitched me up, and I was on my way to the gig. He just said, "Do you want a spot?" I said, "Oh, okay, sure." And he stitched me up and told the crowd, "Listen, whatever he says, he thinks he's a big shot. Don't laugh at a thing he says. Just keep your face completely still, no laughing." And I get up and I do bits that I know were working. I'd just done a run of like 12 shows or whatever in Perth, and I knew it was going to work. And I get up and this chick's just staring at me, just through every bit. She's like just staring at me, like with a big sad face. And I just treat her like someone in my show. I was like, "Geez, you're a real cunt, you know?" And her friends looked at her like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Oh, you've never been called a cunt before. This has never happened in your life."
I don't think half these people have been in a fucking fight.
I know. That's the thing. Like, they're just not in the real world. It doesn't exist.
I think that's the whole problem with this cancel culture now. It's not so much that, it's that we live in a society where we just want to fucking dob on people. We want to, if someone does something wrong, we just want to tell everyone about it and see how much trouble we can get some dude into. That means fuck all to us.
Yeah.
We just want to dob on them. Let's see how much trouble we can cause.
Well, that's exactly what happened with mine. So mine blew up. I had 48,000 DMs on Instagram, like mad numbers, crazy. And then, but you look at
and awful stuff too, isn't it?
Oh, you know, the one thing that got me was, I know I talk about feminism and misogyny and all that type of shit, and half the time it's bullshit, but the misogynistic shit that people would send, like, "I'm going to kill your wife, I'm going to rape your daughter." I'm just like, whose first response is that? Like, when you see something you don't like, who the fuck puts that out there? Because
someone said something they didn't think was nice. So that's their go-to.
What a crazy reaction.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's all that. It's like, what type of mental midget would even think that's just run out of the blocks?
And then it's a lot of young kids that are talking like that too, and they've been brought up in cancel culture to know that if you hear something, as you said, if you hear something you don't like, the best thing to do about it is to dob, whinge, and make as much noise as possible. But and I think that's a concern for areas like Sydney and Melbourne, and for scenes like the comedy scene. Like, man, I don't know. I did an open mic night. I was just desperate to get on stage in Newcastle. It was a good night. I tried a new 20 minutes. Probably about 12 of it bombed extremely hard. And I kept 8, which I was very happy about. I hadn't been on stage in like 6 months. And then I see on Twitter last week some dude tagging me saying, "Oh, he was at this open mic night and he did a joke about how Harvey Weinstein's the girl that he sexually assaulted, actually got a pretty good deal out of it, and he's a piece of shit." And I'm just like, "What, you dobbing me for that? Like, I don't mean that shit. Are you serious? Like, what the fuck?"
And he probably, I mean, he's getting the rough gist of what you said, right? He's missing the wording. He's taken the rough idea of it. It's these fucking idiots. It's like, God,
you won't win.
What do you do though? What do you do? Win. No, it's I mean, I've got a couple of clubs here where if I want to try material, I go. If that scene ever fucking cranks up again, I do most of my stuff overseas, or I do comedy on the ships and all that sort of stuff, or just out of Melbourne. Comics lounges, or out in the country, a lot of country gigs, and they're really good. Country people are just great, and they take a joke. They just get it's a joke.
Yeah.
They're not offended. Like, "Hey, you cheeky bastard." That's all they're thinking.
Mate, if you go like Queensland, where you're from, they're fine.
Yeah.
They're perfectly fine. Not a worry. You can say anything. Sydney, it's sort of just the more south you get, the more like, they start to freak out a little bit. You know, Sydney's not too bad. Depends which suburb you're in, I guess. And then you go to Melbourne. If you're in the CBD, people are just freaking the fuck out. That's why I just try and play the Comics Lounge or when I'm down there, just so that.
Well, it's the only place to play in Melbourne. It really is the only decent room.
Yeah.
And the only one that pays.
Yes. But their attitude, like they messaged me during the week and they're just like, don't worry about these fucking idiots, you know?
Yeah.
And that's their attitude with comedy because they know who I am as a person. They've, you know, I've had not a heap of time with them, but, you know, a couple of hours here or there after shows, and they know that I'm not some fucking asshole. And so they look at me and they go, okay, well, he's just joking. He's a comic at the end of the day. He can say whatever the fuck he wants. And
I just think there should be room for dark comedy.
Yeah.
There's definitely a need for it. It's I understand if someone doesn't want to be a dark comedian or doesn't want to watch dark comedy, but that doesn't mean other people don't get to. You don't cancel something because you don't like it.
Like if you're around your mates, like the jokes that get my mates laughing the most are the most heinous shit imaginable.
The stuff that gets my wife laughing is the most heinous shit.
Yeah.
Possible, you know, and her back to me too.
Yeah, exactly.
We know we're kidding.
Yeah.
And we can say anything.
Exactly. You know, and that's the same thing when you enter that contract with someone, you know that, okay, they aren't a crazy person. Like if I was, as you said, doing a TED talk and I brought that bit up, then okay, I deserve to have a lot of fucking hate given my way. Yeah. But when it's all pretend and make believe, it's all good. How can you be bad?
I think so. It's I hate the idea that there's any restriction on comedy. I think some topics some comics can't talk about because they don't have the skills to talk about it. But if you're a good comic, I don't really see there's anything you can't talk. Ricky Gervais. Yeah. He'll do fucking anything and he's great.
And that's sorry.
People still offended.
Yeah.
Which is fine. He doesn't care.
But that's the point. The point is to be offensive with those type of jokes. You know they're offensive. That's the whole idea. Yeah. And I said this the other day. It's like it's almost a competition with when you're doing a show of where you go to as far as how far you go with certain jokes. And it's up to the audience whether or not they're funny. And a good comic will test something out, realize that no one laughs, whether it's offensive or clean as fuck, and then throw it away. I think a lot of people in Melbourne and in Sydney, and I've seen it in open mic scenes, they do 5 minutes one week, it bombs hard, and they do the same 5 minutes the next week and the same 5 minutes. You got to be a good comic and let shit go. If it doesn't